I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
I'm Kay Vess. I'm here to drink wine and hang out with my 17 cats.
What is up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the decidedly debonair Dr. Disaster, and we have been trying to tell all of these mainstream media chuckleheads and the Disney Star Wars fanboys for a long time now that Star Wars has been ruined by Disney. It is a shell of its former self, but what we said fell on deaf ears.
Not listening. Not listening.
The sequel trilogy carved out the beating heart of the franchise, and ever since then, the Disney greed machine has stomped it into pieces and sold whatever fragments of the franchise they could fool suckers into buying. This all seemed to culminate last year in one of the most embarrassing displays ever witnessed. The Acolyte Disney Plus show was roundly mocked for being openly queer, in a franchise where the audience is not at all interested in that sort of thing, and it was likely the final death blow of the IP.
I'm just saying it's ridiculous how everything is being sold as homosexual nowadays.
Star Wars will still have a pulse for a while, but it's faint and ever fading. That's why the Skeleton Crew Disney Plus show, despite most people claiming it was a decent show, it failed miserably. Nobody watched it. Andor was a reasonable success, but not enough to bring them back from the brink, and one of the most amusing failures from the Star Wars brand in the past year has been the Ubisoft video game Star Wars Outlaws, where they took the Han Solo character archetype of a rugged rogue smuggler and they turned him into a girl boss with a bad case of the uglies. We tried to tell these idiots that a game like this was going to flop, particularly considering all the bad mojo Star Wars had going for it right after Star Wars The Acolyte released. But these people wouldn't hear it. We heard all about how this game, Star Wars Outlaws, was the next big thing because the Star Wars brand is awesome. But now, the CEO of Ubisoft has come out and admitted what we have known for a long time now. Star Wars is a husk of its former self, a zombie which needs not so gently escorted to where it belongs now.
Lady, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store.
Alright, me hearties, make sure that you hit the like button on this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and also, don't forget to follow me over on X, where my handle is Dr. Disaster1. I keep a list on there of games lousy with wokeness pinned to the account at all times for your reference. Oh, and I've started uploading some content onto Rumble as well, so make sure that you follow Dr. Disaster over there. Anyhow, let's take a look at what this Ubisoft CEO said about the Star Wars brand. Now, based on what this guy said, it seems fairly clear to me that Ubisoft has no immediate plans to work with Star Wars or even Disney in general in the near future, with as tight a ship as Disney likes to run with their releases, controlling messaging at every point, even with the journalists who review their games and movies and whatnot. But with the way that Disney is, it would seem unlikely that they would agree to work with Ubisoft again anytime soon. They won't be happy at all that Ubisoft essentially badmouthed them, or at least admitted the sort of truth that Disney does not want us to talk about. But let's take a gander at what was actually said. The quote is discussed in this article here from Insider Gaming. It says at the bottom there, during a recent shareholder meeting, Ubisoft's CEO was asked several questions about the development and eventual release of Star Wars Outlaws. It's no big secret that the game didn't perform as well as expected, and in September, Insider Gaming exclusively revealed that the title had sold sold just 1 million copies in a month on the market. For perspective, this game reportedly had a development budget of somewhere around $250 million, with what was described at the time as the largest marketing budget in the history of Ubisoft, probably well over $100 million. That means that they likely spent $350 million or more on the game, which, when you break down the numbers, suggests that the game likely needed to sell around 6 or 7 million units in order to break even. They bet big on this project, and it failed miserably. But here the article says, talking about the issues that plagued Outlaws, Guillemot made a suggestion about the Star Wars brand that hasn't sat well with some fans, specifically the delusional ones, who think that Star Wars can do no wrong. But, reading on, it says, at the recent shareholder meeting, Guillemot fielded questions about Star Wars Outlaws and how it hadn't turned around the results expected of it. The sales targets weren't made clear, but whatever they were, Ubisoft fell far short of hitting them. To explain the downfall of Star Wars Outlaws, Guillemot first criticized the brand before talking about the game's technical performance. For Star Wars Outlaws, we didn't reach our sales targets. The game suffered from a number of items. First, it suffered from the fact that it was released at a time when the brand that it belonged to, was in a bit of choppy waters, and the game had a few items that still needed to be polished, and they were polished and debugged in the early weeks, but it did affect sales volumes. So, at this point, in an attempt to deflect from his own failures, this guy threw the Star Wars brand under the bus, mentioning that as the first item that caused this game to fail. And don't get me wrong, that's where Star Wars belongs, directly beneath the bus. But what the Ubisoft CEO is failing to acknowledge is the fact that his own brand is toxic as hell as well. How many times have we gone over all of the very stupid shit that Ubisoft has done with regards to PR? Ubisoft, with their talk about gamers being comfortable not owning their games, and with being known for releasing games that are buggy and unfinished, their reputation is in the toilet too. So, this was a perfect storm of shittiness that created such a piss-poor release for Star Wars Outlaws. You gotta think that choosing to take this actress who played Kay Vess and to make her look like the grotesque thing that we saw on the screen in that game, that is perfectly on point for both of these brands, Star Wars and Ubisoft. It is perfectly emblematic for both. I mean, that's why Assassin's Creed Shadows, last I checked, still hadn't hit 3 million units in sales, despite the pedigree of that franchise and the popularity of its setting in Japan, and the fact that they spent more on Assassin's Creed Shadows than they spent on Star Wars Outlaws. This, Ubisoft that is to say, is a studio that is untethered from the reality of what their customers want. That is why Ubisoft's stock value is less than $10 per share nowadays, despite being at about $85 less than 5 years ago. They have fallen off about as hard as it gets. So yeah, it's cathartic to hear this guy admit what we have known about Star Wars for a long while, that the brand is severely damaged. It is no longer an automatic, massive draw. But in truth, Ubisoft might be even worse. However, I'm going to leave it there. Which of the two brands, Ubisoft or Star Wars, do you think is more toxic these days? Drop your thoughts and your mockery of both into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.